Lately, I've been living a life that feels straight out of a storybook with my mother-in-law, who's more like a young girl at heart, and my beloved spouse. It makes me wonder, is it common to have such a unique and close relationship with one's mother-in-law? Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine having this kind of bond with her. Moreover, since I've never dated an older woman before, getting to know my mother-in-law on such a personal level initially felt a bit awkward. But to cut to the chase, I've been incredibly happy these days. I'm a man in my late 20s, living with my wife, who's the same age as me. We have a young son who just celebrated his first birthday. My wife and I met through a friend in our mid-20s, dated and got married, making us among the first in our circle of friends to tie the knot. Thankfully, my father suggested that it would be best for us to live near my mother-in-law if we both planned to work. So he helped us get a house in her neighborhood. My wife is the eldest of two sisters, and her mom got married at 20, immediately having my wife, which means my mother-in-law is in her late 40s. I work at the same company as my wife, and we send our child to a nearby daycare, commuting together. After having his afternoon snack, my mother-in-law picks him up and looks after him until we finish work and bring him home from her place. Sometimes we stay for dinner, but on particularly exhausting days, we bring home food she has packed for us. No matter how convenient it is to live near my mother-in-law, it feels like I can truly unwind only after getting home and taking a shower to wash away the day's stress. Considering we experienced dating, marriage, and having a child all in our 20s, it seems like we got a head start on life by a few years compared to others. There's a saying that the hardships of youth are self-inflicted. And though we may not have partied much in our 20s, the thought of establishing a family early and raising a child makes me believe we'll live a significantly freer life in our late 40s than others. My mother-in-law, who lives nearby, is genuinely youthful at heart. She enjoys homemaking and cooking, and she always speaks so beautifully. Her always kind and gentle words make anyone feel welcomed and cherished. The house my father bought us has been standing for 15 years and never saw an interior makeover, which made it unsuitable for setting up a newly home. After discussing it with my wife, we decided to renovate it and started preparing by visiting various places. My impatient wife eventually threw in the towel and told me, "Just change the house however you like. I don't mind as long as it's clean." And Teddy, opting out of the renovation process. That's when my mother-in-law stepped in. She has always been talented with her hands and has an excellent sense of fashion. She offered to accompany me to the wholesale market, especially since her daughter wasn't showing interest, as long as I was comfortable with it. So I ended up going to a well-known wholesale market for interior decorations. With my mother-in-law, she respected my opinions, and as we chose decorations and materials, it seemed like our tastes aligned perfectly, despite the exhaustion after a day of difficult decisions and consultations. Returning home after a meal out made my mind feel clearer. My wife, on the other hand, showed little interest in anything outside of work, even at a bridal fair. She was quick to suggest heading home early due to the crowd. I wanted to shop around more to get better prices, but my wife is impatient and doesn't do well in crowded situations. So we ended up making our choices with my mother-in-law in tow. If she hadn't been with us, we probably would have made all our decisions at the first store. My mother-in-law is meticulous. and likes to calmly check everything several times before making a decision. When we were dating, every time I visited her house, she would always prepare new side dishes and a main course. Her cooking was truly exceptional. My own mother is a great cook, but my mother-in-law is in a league of her own, having only ever eaten my mom's cooking. Visiting my mother-in-law opened my eyes to a whole new world of cuisine. Whenever I complimented her cooking, she would beam with joy. She once told me, "My family has never once said they enjoyed my cooking, even when I went out of my way to prepare special dishes." It hurt my feelings. I realized then that my wife and her sister had been taking her amazing cooking for granted. My mother-in-law seemed pleased to see me enjoy my meal, perhaps finding satisfaction in her son-in-law's hearty appetite. Shortly after we got married, my father-in-law was promoted at work. We celebrated by bringing flowers and a cake to my mother-in-law's house, where I told her, "This promotion is largely thanks to your support behind the scenes." She laughed, saying, "No one has ever thanked me for my efforts. My husband thinks he got the promotion all on his own. It means a lot that you see what I do. Thank you." Our child was born within a year of our marriage, when my wife was 5 months pregnant. My father-in-law passed away suddenly, leaving my mother-in-law in a difficult place. Despite this, she remained strong and eventually regained her cheerful demeanor. Concerned for her, I made it a point to have dinner with her every evening after work, staying until just before bedtime before heading home. Whenever a heavy package arrived at her house, I would hurry to bring it in and organize everything for her. She once said, "My husband never helped me out like this. You're so thoughtful. You're really a healthy and sexy man. Thank you." Later, she confided in me that throughout their marriage, my father-in-law had been unfaithful. How could he look at other women when he had such a beautiful, youthful wife? I wondered. My wife mentioned that she doesn't remember her parents being affectionate with each other. Whenever my mom raised her voice, I knew something was wrong, and it made me feel down, she said. My mother-in-law felt trapped in a marriage where her husband neglected her, especially regarding the upbringing of their children. Despite being a full-time homemaker and a mother, she never received a word of praise or encouragement from my father-in-law. After celebrating our child's first birthday, I was inspired to grow closer to my mother-in-law, who had endured a challenging marriage at a young age. I proposed a short family trip to the East Coast, just the 3 of us, leaving our child with my parents. My normally reserved wife was thrilled at the idea. We were lucky to book a luxurious resort at a discount through my work. There, we enjoyed a day at the beach like kids, with my mother-in-law, even bringing a swimsuit to swim for the first time in years. That evening, after a meal and drinks back at our room, I saw my mother-in-law in a new light. Despite her age, she looked youthful and fit, more like a sister to my wife than her mother. My wife would joke about her mom remarrying and possibly having more children, which always made my mother-in-law blush and look away, clearly embarrassed by such comments in front of me. After the birthday preparations, which were more demanding than our wedding, we all felt the exhaustion. My wife quickly retired to bed, leaving me and her mother to chat and share drinks. We reminisced about her late husband, who never showed appreciation for her efforts, and how lonely she felt now, with both daughters busy with their lives. Noticing her loneliness and her fear of sleeping in the dark, I decided to stay by her side through the night. Our conversation turned personal, and she complimented me on looking attractive at the beach, which led to an unexpected intimacy between us. The next morning, despite the awkwardness, my mother-in-law prepared French toast, and my wife, unaware of the night's events, enjoyed the breakfast cheerfully. After returning from our trip, I noticed a certain awkwardness in my mother-in-law's eyes, yet her youthful demeanor remained unchanged. Recently, we've been seeing each other more frequently. On nights when my wife works late, I find myself rushing to my mother-in-law's house to spend time with her. There's an undeniable warmth in her blush as she lies beside me, a sight that makes it impossible not to hold her close as she gently closes her eyes. I can't understand how her husband could have overlooked such a lovely woman. My wife prefers to rest at home on weekends, but I often find an excuse to visit my mother-in-law, hinting at wanting to enjoy a meal she's prepared. Despite being busy preparing food and enjoying time with her healthy son-in-law, she's never been happier. I wish to make up for the lonely years she endured